The scheduled arraignment of the suspended governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, at the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Abuja, has been stalled. While Mr. Emefiele was in court, the second defendant, Sadat Yaro, was absent, and this informed the decision of the court to adjourn till 23rd August. Judiciary Correspondent Celestina Iria reports.
It is the second time the Department of State Services will be charging the suspended CBN governor to court. Mr. Emefiele was first arraigned before Justice Nicholas Owebo of the Federal High Court, Lagos, on a 2-count charge of illegal possession of firearms, to which he pleaded not guilty. Justice Owebo had granted bail to Mr. Emefiele in the sum of 20 million naira and one surety in like sum. The court ordered that Mr. Emefiele should be remanded at the Ikoyi Correctional Center pending the perfection of his bail conditions. After proceedings on that day, the DSS rearrested Mr. Emefiele and took him in custody despite the orders of the court. Now, he had been brought before Justice Hamza Mwazu of the FCT High Court Maitama on the 20-count charge of illegal procurement of over 98 vehicles and armored buses to the tune of 9.6 billion naira. Mr. Emefiele is expected to be arraigned alongside a CBN employee, Sadat Yaro, and her company, April 1616 Investment Limited. At the day proceedings, counsel to the federal government and Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation, Mohammed Abubakar, told Justice Hamza Mwazu that Sadat Yaro took ill in the morning, hence was unable to make it to the court. Mr. Abubakar apologized to the court and applied for a new date for arraignment. The request for adjournment was not opposed by Kilolu Kayinde, a senior advocate of Nigeria who stood for Mr. Emefiele. Justice Mwazu subsequently fixed 23rd August for the arraignment.
Now they told us that Emefiele has cases to answer on matters that have to do with terrorism. We expected that the charges will reflect terrorism count charges. Unfortunately, or surprisingly, what we saw was matter bordering on procurement, that he gave contract for the award of land cruisers. Gentlemen, this is a charade.
Operatives of the Department of State Services who brought Mr. Emefiele to court under watertight security to avoid security breaches returned him to their custody immediately after the proceedings.
The alleged offences committed by the suspended CBN governor is contrary to Section 19 of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000. If found guilty, Mr. Emefiele may be sentenced to 5 years imprisonment without an option of fine. Celestina Iria, TVC News, Abuja.
I'm joined now by TVC's Judiciary Correspondent Celestina Iria for more on this development. Celestina, what more do we know about the new 20-count charge against the former CBN governor before a federal high court in Abuja?
Well, Nifemi, the suspended CBN governor has not been able to take his plea because he was not arraigned today. The arraignment was stalled due to the absence of the second defendant, Sadat Yaro, who is an employee of the CBN. So the arraignment today was stalled. The DSS took him back to their facility till the next adjourned date, scheduled for arraignment, which is 23rd of August. But the body of the charge, which is 20 count, borders on illegal procurement of vehicles to the tune of about 6.9 billion naira, and it's about 98 vehicles. The charge alleged that the suspended CBN governor used Mr. Sadatsu to procure the vehicles, not going through the proper procurement act and breaking some laws and regulations. And from what we gathered, that the DSS or the federal government that is prosecuting the particular case tends to call the director of procurement of the CBN and the head of procurement of the CBN to testify against Mr. Emefiele. And also we gathered that it was alleged in the charge that Mr. Sadatsu is a director of the companies that the suspended CBN governor gave the contract to procure these vehicles for the CBN. So these are the charges. It's 20 count because it happened at different times from 2018 to 2020. This is what the federal government is bringing against the suspended CBN governor. But now the charge at the Federal High Court, Lagos, has been struck out for lack of diligent prosecution, though the federal government sought to withdraw the charge due to emerging facts from the investigation, which informed them filing this 20-count charge before the FCT High Court in Maitama. But what is sure is the fact that the fact remains that Mr. Emefiele has been granted bail, and since he has not been arraigned, the charge is just before the court. The counsel said that they are not yet to even see the charge because he hasn't had time to interface with his client. So the DSS is safe to say that they are incompetent of court because the order given by the Federal High Court in Lagos was for him to be remanded in Ikoyi Correctional Center. But the DSS rearrested him and took him away, now bringing him before Justice Hamza Mwazu. So we would wait till 23rd of August to see if the arraignments scheduled for that day would hold, and we'll know the next line of action, which will expect that the counsel to Mr. Emefiele will move for his bail application. Hopefully, the court will decide it one way or the other. But if it's in his favor, we are hoping that the DSS will obey that order and release Mr. Emefiele on bail. But if at the end of the day, it takes his plea, trial commences, and the court decides one way or the other, and if Mr. Emefiele in any way is found guilty, is liable to spend 5 years in imprisonment and no option of fine.
Judiciary correspondent Celestina Iria live for us in Abuja.